Christmas dinner. There's one meat I associate with Christmas, and that's turkey. Having a roast turkey on the table is an absolute must in my household. Yes, everybody knows that it can be overcooked, so I thought, what does one of the best chefs to ever do it, Marco Pierre White, do for his turkey? I searched around a bunch of his different recipes, and I've found his techniques together to find out what makes a great turkey. And then later, we'll have a look at what he recommends to do with the leftovers. He suggests only cooking the crown, that is the double breast and the wings of the bird. But we're going to trim up first and get rid of some of the bits that we don't need, because the breast and the thigh cook at different temperatures and cook to different temperatures, which is one of the greatest challenges in roasting any bird. But with turkey, the bigger size of it means the problem is magnified more so than with a chicken. You'll see I've got two roasting trays on the go, one for all my bits and bobs, and that's where the thighs are going to cook on top, and another one just for the crown. So there we have our crown and all the odds and ends to one side. I'm going to trim those up a bit, and then we'll just have the crown by itself. So now we've got the bird. Now I've got here a mix of half packet stuffing and sausages that I've just all ground up together with a little water to let it down. Yes, packet stuffing. We know Marco can be synonymous with brand terms. He's got a whole book about it. So yes, he wants us to stuff this bird with a packet seasoning. So we've got our prepared bird ready for the oven. My oven's been preheating to 180 degrees C. Now we're just going to add some of Marco's favourite ingredient, some clarified butter. That's butter I've just melted gently in the microwave, then leave it to stand for a few minutes and all the sediment catches at the bottom. Skim off the top stuff, and that has a much higher smoke point than other fats. But you retain that rich dairy flavour. Marco recommends that the home cook use a crown, as you effectively halve the cooking time. This is about a 9.5 pound, 4 and a bit kilo turkey. That would take about 3 hours in the oven. This should take it down to about 90 minutes. But just to be on the safe side, I've got a remote probe thermometer here that I can check on my phone. I'm going to find the thickest part of the breast, around here at the top. Pop that in, just some white pepper and a little dusting of salt. Of course, we have the stuffing in there doing the work. I'm going to put this in the oven. As I said, I'm expecting about 90 minutes, so in about 30 minutes time, I'm going to add the trays of all the other bits, and then we can cook the thighs and the drumsticks, and all the other bits will collect and make a lovely gravy. So here is our bird at 65 degrees internal. I'm going to wrap and cover this in both foil and a tea towel, because I'm not going to eat it for a couple of hours, so I want it to stay nice and rested at that temperature so I can reheat it later. It's got a lovely burnished skin, it's plump and juicy, and I've only got these big breast portions to carve out later, so that'll be excellent. I've also got my odds and ends that I just took out a couple of minutes ago. That needed about an hour. This took about an hour 20, this 4-ish kilo bird. I'm going to leave this to rest for now, and we'll come back to it for carving. So we had the turkey for dinner last night. It was very nice. It was a little under seasoned. It certainly wasn't dry. I've got some of the leftovers here. Got a couple of tubs of these. Quite a big turkey, so it's made quite a few little lunch boxes. Plus all the bits and bobs I'm going to use to make a stock, turkey stock, always useful this time of year. Yeah, it's perfectly nice. I'd just say it's a little under seasoned. I would prefer more of a curing method. By all means, take off those areas of the turkey so you're left with a crown, but then salt it all over and leave it for at least 6 hours so that salt really penetrates into the meat. That's what I would do anyway. Still, let's see what else we can do with this turkey using some of Marco's leftover recipes. So first on Marco's lists of things to do with leftover turkey is coleslaw. Doesn't smack of being the most inventive thing to do, but let's push through anyway. So we need cabbage, onion, carrot, finely grated. And Marco gets quite het up about how much mayonnaise is used. People use too much mayonnaise, he says. If you want more mayonnaise, put it on the side. While simultaneously saying, there's no recipe, do what you want. I don't know. So I'm going with a scant amount of mayonnaise here. Just enough to bind. Marco also immediately jumps on the defensive by saying, I always add sultanas to mine because it's the way I was taught. There's a sort of come at me bro energy about it. And we garnish with a little leftover chopped turkey. And that's it. Well, there's nothing to dislike, but it is what it is. Lettuce, onion, carrot, mayonnaise, turkey, and sultanas. And so next on our leftovers roundup is a turkey casserole. Now, it's not strictly leftovers, actually. Marco actually does this with raw turkey, but I see no reason why we can't just add our cooked turkey at the end just to warm through. It's incredibly rustic. It looks incredibly easy, but at the same time it has the feel of a slight phone-in of effort. So we just add very roughly chopped carrots, as in halved. I've just clanked up some celery and a few onion chunks. Marco adds baby onions, I can't find anything. And of course all of that is getting simmered in stock that has been made with, of course, a stock pot. And we just simmer that for 10 minutes. So just adding some chopped leek. My vegetables have now been simmering away for 10 minutes for my casserole, so I'm now going to add basically all the remaining ingredients. A handful of frozen peas, a little cream, because it wouldn't be a Marco recipe without cream in it, some of our turkey, and a corn flour or cornstarch slurry, that is, equal parts corn flour and water. And that will just thicken it. To quote Marco, you'll never get lumps with corn flour, which, if you add it in the right way, yes, is true. He didn't add the key thing, which is make sure you add it wet, not dry. And as a final garnish, the celery leaves. Well, let's taste. I mean, you saw what I put in there. Obviously vegetables, stock, turkey, a little cream is the crux of it. And that's exactly what you're getting. It's very honest. I've added no extra seasoning. I will say that. I mean, I'm not shilling for no stock pot here, but the stock pots there have done the job and flavoured that without it being over seasoned, you know. But obviously you could take it in any direction you wanted. As a technique, totally fine. As a recipe, a little safe, a little dull, but we need to remember these Knorr series of videos where this comes from is deliberately targeting time poor cooks looking for inspiration for dinner on a Tuesday. This isn't I've got all Sunday to make lunch. It does exactly what it's supposed to and nothing more. It could, of course, not need turkey. It could do anything it wanted in there. And the next recipe in Marco's turkey leftovers is a bit of a classic in name, a turkey curry. You'll find many people with horror stories of having turkey curry on Boxing Day in the UK. That is the day after Christmas Day. This is no turkey tikka masala. This is no turkey balti, turkey madras, turkey vindaloo. This is a very 70s Caribbean-inspired curry. It's not something you'd find in a British Indian restaurant. One of the first stages is to brown some flour, which he does in the oven. So I'm just going to brown that in the oven now. Okay, we start with some onion, and then we add some apple. And because I'm going to pass this as per Marco's instructions, sieve it all off, I'm just going to just roughly chop that in, seeds, pips, core and all. And now a banana. I'm not going to lie, banana is one of my least favourite things in the world. But let's trust the system. And then finally some pineapple. And we're just going to let that stew down for about 10 minutes. And so after 10 minutes of softening, I'm just going to add some curry powder. I'm just going to shake over a generous teaspoon or so. Marco, very non-committal about what you add here. You should just give curry powder a minute to bloom in the oil. Let the spices wake up. Marco then adds yet another of my least favourite ingredients, desiccated coconut. I just can't go that far, so I'm going to add ground almonds instead, which will act as a thickener, but also give us that sort of nutty, creamy flavour that I think he's going for. And then stirring through my flour that's been browned in the oven. Not entirely sure why you can't do that in a pan, but I guess it's so you can do two things simultaneously. I assume that's adding a thickening to this. Because now we add Marco's favourite ingredient, stock from a stock pot, which is better than any stock you can make at home, remember that. Everything has come to a boil, so I'm now going to pass it. After being passed, going to add it back into the pan, adding a splash of cream, and of course some of our turkey. And as that cream starts to warm up and be incorporated, it'll all heat through. We'll just check for seasoning. The stock pot's done its job there. Well, it's not untasty. It's thankfully not too banana and pineapple-y, just like I hate. There's a kind of thickness from the flour. It's not offensive, and I think doesn't do any favours to the turkey, which gets absolutely annihilated in all those flavours. So, not one I'll be rushing back to, I don't think. 3 Marco Pierre White recipes there for your leftover turkey, although really we could do that with any leftover poultry. Any of those you're going to do yourself? Not sure there's any there I'm going to be returning to very soon. Hope you enjoyed that. YouTube says you're going to enjoy this one next, so enjoy.